All right, going back to the top story, India's cabinet on Thursday approved a memorandum of understanding with the European Commission on semiconductors. The MOU aims to boost cooperation in research, innovation and advancement of technologies. Joining me in the studio is Mr. S. Krishnan. He is the Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. Mr. Krishnan, welcome to DD India News Hub.
Thank you.
If I may begin by asking you, Mr. Krishnan, to dwell a bit, if you will, on the basics, as it were. What is a semiconductor? Why is it important? In other words, why has the semiconductor become so important so quickly?
I think the semiconductor has now been part of a lot of electronic equipment. It's a micro-electronic device. It's been a part of equipment ever since the 70s. But with computers becoming much more ubiquitous and mobile phones, it has found part in all of those devices. And it follows something called the Moore's law and keeps getting miniaturized and smaller and smaller. And it is also increasingly used in almost every device that we use. Practically every household device that we use has some semiconductors in it. And likewise, practically every car, every automobile increasingly uses semiconductors. So it's part of practically every piece of electronic equipment that we use. Medical electronics carries it. Everything else carries it as well.
As you say, Mr. Krishna, a semiconductor is small, it's a tiny component, but it wields a disproportionately big influence on world economy. As you say, it's found in everything from a mobile phone and a laptop to cars and televisions as well. It also plays a role in artificial intelligence or AI. To probe you further, why was the semiconductor in the news of late? Was it because A, of COVID-19 induced disruption of supply chains, shortage of rare earth metals, or over-reliance on China, or all of the above?
I would say that primarily the resilience of the supply chain got tested during the COVID pandemic. And that is the main reason why alternate sources of supply needed to be developed.
Right.
Some semiconductors, of course, some part of that supply chain lies in China. But the biggest location for semiconductors supply is actually Taiwan. And Taiwan is now currently the leading producer. Likewise, Korea and a few other countries also are semiconductor producers. Therefore, it is to ensure that the supply chain gets more diversified and more resilient. That is why I think many countries in the world decided that they needed to focus on semiconductor production again and bring back production to their countries in the case of the Western world, both in Europe and in the United States. And a country like India felt it has been something that we've been aiming to do for the past many years, but now I think very many decisive steps have been taken to make sure that the semiconductor industry flourishes in India.
And what you said just now gives me a perfect segue to my next question to you, Mr. Krishnan. Talking about India, where does India see itself today and tomorrow insofar as chip design and manufacturing are concerned?
As far as chip design is concerned, we are at an interesting spot where almost about 20% of the design engineers world over are in India. And a lot of the chip design actually takes place in India. Many international companies, companies like the so-called fabless companies like Qualcomm, Broadcom, etc., and also many other companies design their chips in India. And we have a large number of chip designers. But unfortunately, we do not have any Indian brands which do the designing. The designing is done for multinational companies. The other part of it is in the manufacture. There are a few units which do limited manufacture of semiconductors in niche areas. We have one unit which is in the public sector itself, semiconductor complex which is based in Mohali. Likewise, Bharat Electronics Limited does production for the defense sector. There are some small-scale industries which are engaged in that, but not on a very large scale. And the large-scale manufacture, large-scale IP ownership is primarily in the United States. Manufacture takes place in Taiwan, takes place in China, takes place in Korea. Some of it takes place in Japan. So that is the situation, and where India wants to be is in the semiconductor value chain in terms of manufacture, starting with fabs, which is where the original semiconductor wafers are diced, and they are written upon, or there is what is called lithography on that to carry the microcircuits on the semiconductor, and to further packing them, what is called assembly, testing, marking, and packing. So all of these processes is where India is keen to get into under the Indian Semiconductor Mission, which has been approved by the cabinet.
And talking a bit more about India, Mr. Krishnan, what is India doing in terms of policy, partnerships, or industry incentives in order to emerge as a semiconductor hub going forward?
I think the India Semiconductor Mission is one of the most ambitious industrial policy instruments that India has ever adopted. It has a fairly large subsidy which is offered to manufacturers who establish plants to establish either a fab, a fabrication unit, or an ATMP plant here in India. The first of those is Micron's facility, which is coming up at Sanand in Gujarat. We have currently some applications from other players to establish fabs and other facilities. It is a 75,000 crore program, almost $10 billion. And when you add that to what the state governments are offering, which is about 20 to 25% on top of that, we are offering a 50% subsidy, states are offering another 20-25% subsidy. This 75,000 crores actually then goes up by another 25 to 30,000 crores. So it is one of the largest incentive packages for industry to establish production facilities. And we are expecting, we have already good response, and we are expecting that more approvals will happen in the course of the coming months, so that more semiconductor manufacturing facilities are established in India. We have to ensure that the companies which come to establish these facilities in India have the appropriate technology, have the resources to actually make this happen. And that is the effort that India is currently engaged in.
And finally, Mr. Krishnan, coming to the cabinet decision of this morning, what more can you tell us about the India-EU working arrangements on semiconductors ecosystems, and to the EU-India Trade and Technology Council?
The EU-India Trade and Technology Council has 3 ministers on either side. On India's side, we have the foreign minister, the external affairs minister, the commerce and industry minister, and the minister of communications and information technology, which is my minister. So all 3 of them are represented, and their counterparts on the EU side are also on the Trade and Technology Council. It is a high-powered body, and EU does not have such TTCs with very many countries. We are one of the exceptional countries where we have this special relationship. We've in fact fast-tracked the meetings on this. There is excellent cooperation. We had a meeting a few weeks ago, and we agreed to cooperate on a range of activities in the semiconductor space. As you know, some of the best-known companies in making semiconductor tools are based in Europe. Some of the technology is based there. They do the tooling part of it. Likewise, they're very strong in some of the materials and gases, and some of the technology, so including design. So it is a very good relationship to have. We have similar arrangements with the United States and also with Japan. So I think India has literally entered the big league. And this particular MOU, which we have signed with the European Union, actually signals that the world is taking India seriously in this space and wants India to succeed in something which is a very strategic and crucial area of technology.
Indeed. On that, Mr. Krishnan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and views with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And still to come on DD India News Hour.